Hi, welcome back to me drawing and accidentally telling you my life story. Today's story comes with a disclaimer. I am an unreliable narrator, which is a polite way of saying that my brain deletes files randomly. No warning, no backup, just sorry, that memory has been permanently removed. I do not remember my childhood in a normal way. I remember it in 3 folders. Folder 1, age 4. Folder 2, age 9. Folder 3, age 11. And age 11 is very big because most of my memories somehow feel like I was 11. Everything else, I don't know. People will be like, do you remember 2nd grade? And I'm like, no, but I remember the emotional tone of 2nd grade. It was beige with anxiety. My only strong memory is the teacher reading us Boxcar Children while I ate delicious, slightly warm, sliced sharp cheese and grapes from a Ziploc bag, imagining what it would be like to live in a boxcar and just consume milk, similarly slightly warm cheese, and bread. I loved enclosed spaces, so it sounded great to me. After age 12, it gets a little better. High school is like fuzzy with some traumatic highlights and some fun highlights from doing stand-up comedy with a bunch of adults. I'm sure I'll talk about that at some point. College is just a series of relationships and public transportation trauma. No timestamps, just, oh yeah, that guy, that was during my subway era, or the getting pushed on the subway era, or the inappropriate activities being done across from me on the subway area, while inappropriate person was making direct eye contact. Pretty gross. After college, my life is divided into pre-traumatic marriage, traumatic marriage, and second emotional life-saving marriage. That's it. Everything else before my life-saving second husband, which makes me sound much more sophisticated than I really am, is basically historical fiction. Sometimes I wonder, when people write memoirs, do they just remember stuff? Like, it was October 14th, 1997. It was raining, and she whispered. How? How do they know what she whispered? How do they remember that she whispered? I don't understand. Do they research it? Do they recall? Do they call relatives? Do they just lie? Is everyone lying? And am I the problem for overthinking it? So here's the thing though, my brain has priorities. Important life events, blurry, unreliable, vibes only. But mini hot dogs, crystal, clear, high definition, director's cut. I can remember Charlie's Hot Dogs in the city where I grew up that sold mini hot dogs, cheese fries, and chocolate shakes made with Hershey's ice cream. And I remember thinking, this is the best meal of my life. And I remember the lighting, the smell, the exact feeling of joy, the vague stench of construction workers also eating at the 1980s mall-style tables, like the weird booths that barely fit a human body. Meanwhile, I cannot tell you what year my dad went to prison. No idea. Couldn't guess. Would fail that quiz immediately. But if you ask me about a mini hot dog, I'm like, okay, so first of all, it was slightly overcooked. The bun was soft, like it was also kind of boiled, but not disintegrating. And the mustard to dog ratio was exactly what I wanted. And I felt emotionally safe. Mini hot dogs are sacred. They are emotional support food. They are tiny, edible witnesses to my childhood. And if I loved one once, that meant something. So yes, my memory is broken, but at least it's delicious. If someone says, well, if you were born in 1989, so if you were in 3rd grade, no, stop, immediately no. I cannot do that math. Also, I skipped a grade, so that makes it even more complicated. So I could try to do the math on a calculator, but it would look like this. Repeatedly punch in the wrong numbers. Press the plus sign instead of the minus sign. Punch in the wrong numbers a few more times, get an answer, forget to write down the answer because I pressed the clear button so frantically, like my house is going to catch fire if I leave numbers on the calculator screen for too long, and then quadruple check to see if I get the same answer consistently. I will not. Then I finally get an answer. I forget it. I do it again. I get a different answer. I cry. I decide that general time frames are enough for me. Honestly, sometimes I think that maybe Half my childhood memories are dreams. Maybe I dreamed something in 2016 and now I'm like, oh yeah, that was in first grade. But writing this stuff down actually makes things come back, which is rude. Like, where were you 10 years ago when I was at a party trying to remember something to someone? Okay. Now, let me tell you about my first teacher friend. I've had a lot of teacher friends in my life, and I think I wouldn't be the same if I didn't have as many teacher friends. They were like the emotional and encouraging support that was lacking elsewhere for reasons. I will maybe do a series on teacher friends, but let's start with this one. Okay, fourth grade, Mrs. Jordan, she had burnt orange hair, very intense eyebrows, like if Miss Frizzle went through a serious phase, and she loved me. I was her favorite. I kinda was everyone's favorite, including parents, which explains a lot about me now and how disappointing the rest of my life is. But it isn't. I just assume that I need to be the favorite in order to be worth something. But more about that with my therapist next week. One time, my sister put a note in my lunchbox in fourth grade. It said, "Have a good day, you little brown noser," with a smiley face and possibly a brown mark. I think that feels true. I showed it to my teacher. I thought it was a compliment. And proudly, I was like, hey, look how loved I am. Look at this. I did not learn what brown nosing meant until much later, which is for the best. Mrs. Jordan used to like to take me places like Kmart, Burger King, the hottest destinations of 1996. I'm saying 1996 for comedic effect. I don't know if it was 1996. She had a wood-paneled van that I called it the woodchuck van, as we punched each other whenever we saw a vehicle that had a fake wood on the side. One time, I overheard her tell my mom, she's like a 40-year-old in an 8-year-old's body, which explains why I was worried about taxes at recess. That's a joke. I was more worried about, dying young at recess than that. One time, Mrs. Jordan took me to a concert at my little parochial school. I thought it was going to be like a 60s, 70s cover band, but it ended up being a God concert. Well, of course it was, because it was at a church, because it was at the church at my school. And they made us hug each other. It was like, look to the person next to you and hug them. And Mrs. Jordan hugged me. Hard. Not in like a weird way, but in like a real hug way. And I froze like a fainting goat. My brain was like, is this illegal? Am I in danger? Why was that my conclusion? I stared at my light up sneakers and I wished I could cartoon duck out of it, Like when she reached over and I would just duck down and go, whoop, whoosh, you missed me. And I have replayed that moment for 25 years. But it wasn't weird and it wasn't unsafe. It was just like someone being openly expressive with affection because she loved me and she was kind. And this story does not get dark, just so you know. She protected me, and I was just like internally panicking. It's almost like when you can't accept a compliment. Because I realize now I was a pretty deeply anxious child. I cried about growing up. I had apocalypse dreams at the age of 8. I was like, I'm not emotionally prepared for adulthood or the end of civilization. And now that I'm an adult, I'm still having apocalypse dreams, but with my kids in them. So, growth, I guess. Honestly, thank God I didn't duck. She needed a hug, and I needed safety, and we were both doing our best. Most of my teacher friends, as I said before, saved me. They gave me confidence. They believed in me. They kept me afloat. One of them is terrible, but we will get to that later, probably with wine. For now, thanks for listening to me overshare while making whatever it is this is. If you remember your childhood clearly, please explain how, because I am out here guessing most of the time. See you next time.